I never thought I'd be writing a story like this, but here we are. It all started in the most ordinary way. I was sitting in the living room of the house I had lived in for years when my parents told me they were getting a divorce. There were no loud arguments, no bitter fights, just two people who had grown apart, living parallel lives under the same roof. I had already sensed it. Dinner together had become rare, and the air in our home had felt heavy for a long time. So when they finally said it out loud, I wasn't surprised. I handled it well, or at least, I thought I did. I was an adult, working a regular office job, and I had already been saving up to move out. My dad moved across town to a small apartment, and we kept our tradition of watching sci-fi movies and eating pizza every other weekend. Life moved on. Then my mom met someone new. I remember that morning so clearly. She practically floated into the house glowing with excitement as she announced, "I've met someone special." Over breakfast, she told me about him, a man with a daughter in college. "Wouldn't it be nice to have a sister?" she asked. At the time, I smiled. I didn't know that this one decision would change everything. A few months later, my stepfather and his daughter moved in, and that was when my life started to fall apart. At first, it was just little things. My stepsister Claire seemed nice when adults were around, polite, well-dressed, always smiling. But when no one else was looking, she was different. My work clothes would mysteriously get ruined in the laundry. Important documents for my job would suddenly have coffee stains on them. My personal belongings would disappear and later reappear, damaged. My stepfather wasn't much better. He had a way of making every conversation feel like a subtle insult wrapped in concern. "Don't you think that skirt is a bit short for the office?" he'd say with a fake chuckle. Or, "Maybe if you spent less time on your phone and more time networking, you'd have a better job by now." I tried to talk to my mom about it, but she always dismissed it. "He's just being protective," she'd say. "He wants the best for you." And Claire, "Oh, she's just trying to get along with you. You're overreacting." I wasn't overreacting. One night, after weeks of working late, I came home early to find Claire in my room, scribbling all over my presentation materials with markers. My work, my late nights, my exhaustion, my effort, destroyed right in front of me. When I confronted her, she just smiled. I took the ruined papers to my mom and stepfather. "She's just a kid," my stepfather shrugged. "She didn't mean any harm," my mother added. Then my stepfather looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Stop being so dramatic. You're acting like a fool." And my mother said nothing. That night I packed my bags. I called my dad, and 20 minutes later, he pulled up in his truck. Mom came outside as I loaded my things. "You're overreacting," she said. "Why can't you just try to get along?" I turned to her. "Your husband called me a fool, and you said nothing. Your stepdaughter destroyed my work, and you did nothing. That's not overreacting. That's self-preservation." My dad squared up to my stepfather. It escalated so fast that security had to intervene before things got physical. As I drove away, I felt like I could finally breathe again. For 3 years, I worked. I saved. While my co-workers went out for fancy lunches, I brought meals from home. While they went drinking after work, I stayed late and took on extra assignments. Every spare dollar went into my savings. And then finally, I bought my own house. It wasn't a mansion, just a small 2-bedroom home with a cozy kitchen, a backyard where I could plant a garden, and, most importantly, a place that was mine. Every brick, every tile, every window, bought with my own hard-earned money. To celebrate, I threw a housewarming party. I invited my mom but made it clear that my stepfather and Claire were not welcome. She agreed. But when I opened the door on the day of the party, there they were. "Surprise," Mom said weakly. Claire strutted in like she owned the place, her nose in the air. "Ugh, the kitchen is so small," she sneered. "I'd buy a house with a pool." I laughed. "Oh, yeah? What job are you buying it with?" She flushed. "I have prospects." "Prospects aren't paychecks." My stepfather's face turned red. "Don't be rude," he snapped. I turned to my mother. "You knew they weren't welcome." She looked away. I escorted them out. 3 months later, I got an incredible job opportunity. 2 weeks in another city for a major project. But there was one problem: my garden. I hesitated, but finally swallowed my pride and asked Mom for a favor. "Can you water my plants while—" "I'm gone?" Her face lit up with excitement. "Of course, honey. You know how much I love gardening." I gave her the keys. "Please, don't invite anyone over or touch anything else." She nodded. Of course. Something felt off, but I ignored it. A few days into my trip, I noticed strange things. Every time I called Mom, she was at my house. Background noises, TVs, clinking dishes. My security camera? Disconnected. Then I got the screenshots. Claire had posted selfies from my home. "I love my new granite countertops," one caption read. Another photo showed her lounging on my couch. "Netflix and chill in my new place." I called my mom. Straight to voicemail. I called Claire. Blocked. I called my stepfather. Blocked. I called my neighbor. She hesitated. I thought you knew? Your mom said you let Claire move in." I booked the next flight home. I arrived at midnight. The locks had been changed. Through the window, I saw new curtains. My furniture had been rearranged. My home, was no longer mine. Then the door opened. Claire stood there in pajamas. "What are you doing here?" she said, irritated. "What do you mean? What am I doing here?" My voice shook. "This is my house," she smirked. "Not anymore." She slammed the door in my face. I called the police. Within 20 minutes, 2 officers arrived. I showed them my ownership papers, my security footage, the social media posts. When they knocked, my mother, stepfather, and Claire answered. My stepfather puffed up his chest. "This is a misunderstanding." The officer cut him off. "You change the locks on a home you don't own. That's illegal entry." Claire's face paled. "But Daddy said—" The officers escorted them out. Mom cried. "How could you do this to family?" I looked at her. "You did this, the day you chose them over me." Mom hasn't spoken to me since. Claire and my stepfather took plea deals. They have criminal records now. I changed my locks, installed cameras, and blocked them all. I have a new garden, new plants. I sleep peacefully now. Some bridges need to stay burned. And sometimes, cutting ties isn't just a choice, it's survival. I am free. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.